Cool. Okay. Here we go, Flip Trader Group. Our Thursday training back in action. I'm going to make sure everything's rolling inside the group. I'll be monitoring for questions, comments, concerns. And if you watched our podcast episode on Tuesday, then you know who the guy is on the screen. If you don't, this is Aaron Amuchastegui. I'm not going to read your 4-page bio again.
Yeah, we don't have to do that.
Just know that this dude is legit and he knows his stuff. This is like the leading expert in foreclosures and scaling flipping businesses. So you're in the right place. Thursday training is all about you and the trainer. So that's it for me. Thanks for being here. I'm going to dip off real quick. I'm going to be monitoring the group. Anything you guys need, pop your questions up. Aaron will answer them. Aaron's going to take you through a whole training right now. And that's it. Over to you, buddy.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll see you guys in the comments. And so as I kind of jump right into it, you ask questions, ask comments. The more, put them in the comments. The more things, the more interactive you guys are, the more energy that I have. I don't really just want to talk at you for the next hour, but I can, and I'll talk at rapid speed, and I've got all sorts of stuff. It's going to really be a jam-packed session that we're going to jump through. And what I want you guys to know too, so we say foreclosures, right? So I'm going to tell you guys how to buy foreclosures. I'm going to go through how to buy foreclosures, but also don't let that part turn you off if you get to a point where you might be like, hey, this part's challenging, because I also go into how I value properties, how I quickly write offers on properties, how we sell properties. And essentially, like, a big chunk of it is how to buy at auction. But these methods work, like 90% of the methods will work for buying off-market properties. 90% of the methods will work for even buying on MLS and turning it into a flip. It's all about, figuring out how to buy properties, how to make money, and specifically flips is what we're going to get into. So I am going to pull up another tab, and then I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to get going on this. So let me see if I do this right. I'm going to present. Share my screen. Cool. And I'm going to share this. Can I do my Chrome tab? Let's do that. Now, when I add separate tabs in there, I guess I'll be able to jump through and share different tabs as long as I'm paying attention. All right, cool. So Ian, I guess you'll be able to answer, and then everybody else can. You guys see my masterclass, how to buy foreclosure screens up. Cool. So here we go. As we get started, I call this my foreclosure masterclass. What we're going to do today is this is parts of a class that I did. I did a 7-hour live class in my office where I went through and I shared all of my secrets on how to buy real estate. This one was recorded. I actually have a video of it that goes into a lot of depth, but I'm going to hit the most important parts of that masterclass with you guys today. And so I title this masterclass, How to Buy Foreclosures, but it's also how to make money in real estate with seller motivated leads. There is no one more motivated than someone that's in foreclosure, but there's plenty of other motivations out there that get people where they need to sell their house. Maybe they have a lien on it. Maybe they're about to go into foreclosure. Maybe they stopped mowing their lawn. Lots of different things. So I'm asking you guys to put in comments if you're out there, like, who is in the room? So who has been to auction? Who is an investor already? What do you guys think of when someone says foreclosure? And like, what are you helping to learn today? So anything like that, if you guys throw it in the comments, I would love to see it. If you've been to an auction, let me know. Also would love to know where you guys are, because this stuff changes based on what state you're in. So I'm going to cover lots of things today. I'm going to cover the foreclosure process. I'm going to cover dangers and opportunities of foreclosures. The cool thing about dangers is you have an equal amount of opportunity, and anytime something is hard and risky, you're going to have a better chance or a better profit margin when you figure out how to offset that risk when other people are too nervous about it. I'm going to talk about foreclosure investment strategies to buy before the auction, buy at the auction, and buy after the auction. We're going to review how to comp properties, how to establish your construction cost, how to grow your team, and maybe some additional opportunities. We'll see how much of that we can get done in the next hour. So my big thing that I always tell people is success on the courthouse steps is a numbers game. Meaning you need to find and analyze as many properties as possible in order to actually compete. And so what do I mean by that? I'm going to show you guys. But the biggest thing is knowing, it's kind of like when you write offers too. It's a numbers game. So if you're getting a really good deal, if you write one offer and one offer gets accepted, that doesn't happen very often, right? Or if it does, if you write an offer and it gets accepted, the chances that you got a great deal aren't really that high. The idea though is if you're writing 20 or 30 offers and you only get one accepted, that means your offer price is low enough that you probably have some margins in it. So if all of your offers are getting accepted, guys, you are writing your offers too high. If every house you bid on at auction you buy, then you are paying too much. The way for it to work is you can't get everything done right. So I talk about success in real estate and foreclosures is this concept of hunting versus fishing, and you want to be a fisherman. And kind of what does that mean? So hunting is if you say, I only want to buy a house in this specific neighborhood with this color paint that was built in 2012, that's this size. If you're very, very specific and you're zeroing in on one property, your odds are very low. Or maybe people have gone to a foreclosure where they've got a list and it said, this house is going to sale. Oh, I drove by that house. It's in my neighborhood. It'd be a great deal. They show up to auction and that one doesn't go to sale for whatever reason. That's the most common thing is people will show up at auction and they'll say, this was the one that I was hoping to get, but it didn't even show up. What do I do now? And so but when you're fishing, so if you're hunting something very specific, but if you're fishing, you're just casting that pole in the water all day long. You're just trying to catch anything, right? And so that's the way that we want to look at, buying real estate and buying foreclosures. You want to be able to just be casting that net. And as long as you keep fishing, you might not catch one today, you might not catch one tomorrow, but if you keep your pole in the water, you're going to catch something. And that's that numbers game. So the moral of the story is you just keep on fishing. So foreclosures, again, a lot of times people will see a property listed for foreclosure. They will show up at auction and it won't go to sale. So I'm going to show you guys why. So the way that we try to say with that funnel and with that numbers game. So first you start with 50 properties, right? So there's a list of 50 properties scheduled for like your county or your city or wherever. The first step is you're going to filter that. You're going to filter it based on, what kind of neighborhood it's in, maybe what it's surrounding. You're going to get rid of the ones that back up to railroad tracks. Maybe you're going to get rid of the older ones. So you start with a list of 50 and you say, of those 50, I really only like these 30. Then our next step that we're going to go into in our process, then we're going to go drive by all those properties. I'm going to talk to you guys about that. And after you drive by all the properties, there's going to be 10 of them that you're going to say, I don't want that one anymore. That guy chased me off and yelled at me. This one had 10 cars in the driveway. And when I knocked on the door, dogs were trying to chew through the door. And I know this is going to be in bad shape. So you start with 50, it becomes 30. After you drive them, you've got 20. Now you do title research on all of them. And 5 of them have title issues where you're like, I'm not going to buy that because I'm not actually going to own it, or there's a federal tax lien. It'll take me 6 months to sell it. So now after you've done all that, now you show up to auction trying to bid on 15 properties. And you've got your list of 15. But then when auction happens, a lot of them get canceled. So of the 15 you've got left, 7 of them canceled. And if everything worked out right, then you're going to be able to bid on 8 properties out of those 50 you started with. And then you're going to hopefully buy one. So in order to buy a property, you've really got to target 50 properties and be willing and be willing and ready to buy any one of them. And especially when you show up at auction with your list of 15, you're ready to buy any one of those. So you said, how much time do we have to find? So and I guess I'm thinking you're saying is like, how much time do you have, before auction to prepare? And it depends on the city and the state. But for example, in California, they post foreclosures 90 days before foreclosures happen. In Texas, they post foreclosures 3 weeks before foreclosures happen. In Georgia, they do 3 weeks before foreclosures happen. So depending on the state, there's different timelines that you have for that prep. But most of the time, the longer you wait before auction, the more accurate it's going to be, right? You don't really want to drive by a property today that goes to auction in 30 days because by then it could go from occupied to vacant or vacant to occupied. It could burn down. Conditions change. So you want to figure out how to follow my system, but do it in a very short period of time. Somebody said, is there a strategy to talk to a lender prior to the auction? Last time I went to auction, a lender outbid me, tried to make a deal, and they wanted 15% above my bid, so I walked away. Those are very unique things when that happens. But there is, Usually, so the reality is there isn't much of a value in talking to a lender before the auction because the lender doesn't own it yet. The lender, like you could buy the note from the lender, but the homeowner owns the property until the moment auction is over. So a lot of times the lenders won't talk to you ahead of time because up until auction starts, the lender has the right to pay it off or pay that back payment. The lender doesn't own it. The lender doesn't own it until after. So very little value in making a deal with a lender ahead of time unless you're in the notes of owning businesses. Now, on occasion, the lenders will come bid against you for that property, but usually that's because they're intending to keep it back. They know there's title issues that they can't sell it as an REO till auction's over, and so that's how that part's working. Sorry, I still have a little bit of a cough here, so I got to keep muting and unmuting. Back to my fishing analogy. When you look at that spot, the guy on the, so I say, fishing is better than hunting because you got to keep that pole in the water. Well, the guys on the left, they're casting a really, really wide net, right? It's a half an acre. It drags behind their boat. They're very likely to catch a fish. The guy on the right, if he fishes long enough, he is going to catch a fish. But what I like to tell you too is not just a numbers game. You want to cast a big net. And what does that mean? You want to go after as many properties as possible. Maybe that's as many properties as possible within a city or within a county, or for some people, it's even multiple counties that you would go after. So the larger the net that you cast, the better the chance is that you're going to catch a fish or buy a property. All right, so really quick, the 5 risks of buying at foreclosure auction: making sure you get an accurate list, making sure you don't really know the property condition. I'm going to talk to you about that. Occupancy is a big risk at foreclosure because sometimes people live in there that don't plan on leaving. Making sure you have clear title is a risk. And sometimes it's not easy to put values on the properties if you can't see the insides of them. But the reward of buying at auction, my favorite one, is speed and face-to-face bidding. So what does that mean? The moment the auction is over, you own it. As soon as they say going once, going twice, sold, and you hand them the checks, you own the property. You can go change the locks. You can tell the people to start moving out right away. I also love face-to-face bidding. I hate bidding on something where somebody sends back and says, send us your highest and best. You might already be the top offer, and they're trying to get you to increase their offer by even more. That's no fun. With face-to-face bidding, you know who's there. You're usually winning by just $100 more than somebody else. And that makes me feel better. It makes me feel better to know, like, hey, if they're willing to pay 200 and I'm willing to pay 201,000, I can't be off by that much. So it brings me a lot of, like, whereas a lot of people don't necessarily like bidding. I love bidding against people face to face because then like, I might be the idiot buying a house, but I'm not the only idiot in a room. And maybe it gives me a false sense of security, but I love that. Also, property quality. Some foreclosures turn out really, really good. You're helping the community when it's been a vacant, abandoned house. And you only buy foreclosures because you're buying at a significant discount. Why should you listen to me? So this was me back in 2003. I was getting heavily recruited in 2005 at the very height of the housing boom in California, at one of the most booming places in the world. I was running a home builder in Southern California, but I went to school for construction management. I was the most heavily recruited guy out there. I won 2 national championships on that. And I thought I was going to be a home builder forever. Well, quickly after that, this happened. So what is this? This is vacant and abandoned houses. I remember the day they called me and they said, hey, Aaron, we just laid off 70 out of our 75 people. And if you can move to Sacramento this weekend from Santa Barbara, you can keep your job and be one of the remaining 5. So the home building market had completely crashed, and they moved me to the place that was ground zero for the most foreclosures in the world per capita. And that was Sacramento, California. And we had neighborhoods like this where every house in the neighborhood was in foreclosure and vacant and abandoned. There was a neighborhood that we were building as home builders that we were selling houses for $750,000. And then when the first couple of foreclosures happened, they sold for $250,000. Well, that ruined everyone's appraisal. We couldn't sell new homes anymore. And everybody in the neighborhood was like, hey, I bought my house for $650 or $700. You're telling me it's only worth $250 now. Why would I stay in the home when I don't have any equity? There was also this deal back then of all these mortgages that were getting reset. A lot of people got adjustable rate mortgages to be able to afford the homes because they were so expensive. And the people said, hey, in a few years, you're going to be able to refinance. Your house is going to be worth more. You're going to be making more money. Essentially, people got affordable rate mortgages because they couldn't afford to buy a $700,000 house. But they said, hey, we'll get you a lower rate for the first 3 years. You'll get promotions. You'll be able to pay more. Then their rate got reset. Their payments went from $2,000 to $4,000, and they didn't have any equity, and they let their houses go. So whole neighborhoods got foreclosed on like this, just vacant, abandoned houses. Other reasons to listen to me. Here's a map of all the houses that I bought at foreclosure. You can see 500 of them up in Northern California, 121 in Southern California, 700 in Texas, and all over a bunch of these other states. So I have bought more foreclosures than any like single individual than probably anyone I know. Big companies have bought that much, but I wasn't a giant company. I had employees working for me to do different pieces. And these squares in the bottom right, those are houses that I still own. So there's some neighborhoods that I own a bunch of foreclosures, a bunch of rentals in that were originally foreclosures. So I'm an expert in this. And so even when people have me go help them in lawsuits and things like that, they first say, do you consider yourself an expert in foreclosure? I'm not an expert in too many things, but I am an expert in foreclosures. All right. I'm going to share a little story here about foreclosures and how they work. See, this is Eddie. Eddie has a camera set up there on the right. See, his desk is a trash can. So this is the courthouse steps in Sacramento, California. And so when the housing market crashed, we were trying to find different ways to get into the market. And we saw there was an opportunity with foreclosures like REOs on MLS. And we would drive by these houses and they were like, hey, they had like holes in them and needed paint. We're like, this one just needs a little bit of paint, holes in the walls, but this house is $250,000 instead of $750,000. And we could just buy it as a foreclosure and fix it up. We could sell it for $300,000 or sell it for $350,000. We didn't have any luck doing that business. We would make an offer and they would say, sorry, we already accepted an offer yesterday. So then we started writing offers that the day the list would come out, and even the day the listing would come out, they'd say, sorry, we already accepted an offer. We found out later those listing agents were giving it to their friends. They were giving it to people that were going to hire it later. They were scandalous. There was no chance we were ever going to win. And so we started to research what happened upstream. Well, before something gets listed as a bank-owned foreclosure, the auction happens on the courthouse steps. So my buddies and I, these guys that I was working with, we were scrambling, trying to find this business. We saw a property that was scheduled for sale. We did our due diligence. There was no classes back then, no one teaching it. I read loan documents for days and days and days and said, okay, we're ready to bid on this one. There were 3 people standing at that auction. Eddie was the auctioneer. He announced the address. He had an opening bid of $120,000 or something like that. And he said, going once, going twice. And the guy I was with raised his hand and said, hey, we want to bid on that. And he said, okay, would you like to bid a penny over? And we said, okay, yeah, a penny over. And he goes, okay, $120,000 and a penny, going once, going twice, sold. And he grabs our checks from us. And the other 3 bidders there gasped. They kind of sat back, gasped, they laughed, they walked off. And we said, oh my God, what happened? Oh my God, why are they laughing at us? Why are they gasping at us? What did we do? Did we buy the wrong house? And I remember filling out paperwork with this guy, Eddie. And on the receipt, it didn't have the address on it. And we said, hey, it doesn't have the address. Why doesn't it have the address on it? And he said, oh, this has the loan number on it. We said, well, can you tell us if it's the right address? He said, no, that's not my job. We said, well, how's it going to work? He goes, well, if you bought the right house, then in 2 weeks, they're going to mail you a deed. And he took our checks and he rode away on his skateboard and his backpack. And we thought, oh my gosh, we just gave that guy all the money that we had, $120,000. I hope this works out right. The moral of that story is auctions are very unorganized. They're very strange. A trustee could be Eddie in shorts and a t-shirt and a skateboard. They could be somebody dressed in a nice suit, or it could be a company like auction.com where they're nicely dressed and they run it like a regular auction, but they're all the same. They're just representing the lenders and it's really they're just representing the trustees that represent the lenders, where a lender says, this borrower stopped paying. Can you process the foreclosure for us? That house, it worked out really, really well. So we were able to pay the person $5,000 to move out. We fixed it and we sold it and we put it on the market for $200,000. We got multiple offers right away. The reality was it became the only game in town. In general, back then, there were a lot of houses in the neighborhood that were listed for $300,000, but people could only afford $200,000. The people at $300,000 couldn't afford to lower their prices. So foreclosures became the only game in town. And that's a lot like the opportunity that I see right now. I see this stalemate happening where a lot of people could only afford to buy $300,000 in a neighborhood. A lot of people want to sell their house for $400,000 in a neighborhood. So you have to buy a house at an extreme discount in order to make it work. The other thing I should say is we had beginner's luck on that very first one. We were just hunting. We showed up trying to buy one house. For the next 3 or 4 weeks, we showed up at auction every day, and we didn't even get to bid on another house. We did not have beginner's luck anymore. And so we realized that we had to figure out the system of why wasn't our house going to sale. And so that's when we figured out our system. Had I not bought a house that first day, I would have given up and tried a different business. So just know, like, again, it's fishing. You got to show up every day. You got to go through the process. I mean, some states you only show up once a month. But you got to keep showing up in order to get that deal. So one thing I would ask you guys is, what do you think of when you hear the word foreclosure? You know, if you're out there. So what do you think of when you hear the word foreclosure? I think most people think of a crappy, beat up house. But here's some examples of foreclosures that sold recently. That house on the right looks pretty darn nice, right? It was listed for sale, right? But that one was listed for sale. But look at how nice that house is. Built in 2018, Zestimate 547, closing bid was 457. And I know you guys are going to say, don't believe Zestimates. I don't believe Zestimates either, but I need to just put a third-party rate out there that said, hey, somebody valued it like this. And so, and again, you have the house on the left that's a foreclosure. Somebody said, have I ever purchased at auction.com? I feel like there are no deals there. So I have bought properties at auction.com. The reason there aren't as many deals at auction.com is competition makes you pay more money, right? So when I first bought my first house, there's only 3 people at auction and nobody bid on it, right? And so when nobody bids on it, I'm able to get it for a deal. Well, auction.com tries to make, they're one trustee of the 10 or 20 that'll show up at auction, but they try to take the guessing out. They try to make it to where you don't have to do the 5 steps that I do. And as a result, people are more confident bidding with them. So if you have a trustee like Eddie showing up there and a trustee like auction.com, they could have identical houses, but only 1 or 2 people are going to bid with Eddie because he's not giving you an address. He's doing a loan amount and he doesn't care if it sells or not. But auction.com is going to tell people pictures. They're going to tell people about the house. They're going to try to talk them into it. So more people bid at auction.com. And as a result, people pay a lot more money for it. So somebody said they hear banks stamping their feet and wanting too much for the house. There's plenty of that happens. So of those 15 that you show up ready to go to auction, 5 of them are going to sell for way more than you're willing to pay. Again, so 80 or 90% of them, the bank is asking for full debt or they're asking for too much more than it's worth. You're staying there for everything for what's going to be the deal. Here's another example of foreclosures. There was 4 Walmarts that got foreclosed on last year up in the Dallas area. There's this $384 million JCPenney headquarter that got foreclosed on last year. So that could be a foreclosure. 777 South Figueroa Street, $784 million property in downtown LA. That's a foreclosure. And then back to the houses, the one on the left, that's what I think of most of the time when I think of foreclosure, where it's a $187,000 house. It sold for $65,000 at auction, just a good average little rental. We even see restaurants like Chili's getting foreclosed on. So there's lots of different foreclosure types out there. So there's trustee sales. That's what we're going to talk about today. That's when people stop paying their primary mortgage and they get foreclosed on. There's other foreclosures like second deeds of trust. So a lot of times when people bought a house, they get a first and a second. They got a first for 70% of value, a second for 20% of the value. Then their down payment got to be smaller, different rates for each. You can foreclose on mechanics liens. You can foreclose on IRS liens. There's residential, commercial, retail, land. There's all sorts of different foreclosures out there. But primarily what happens with these other foreclosures is you can own the property, but you still owe the original note or you still owe on taxes and things like that. So for today, I'm going to talk about mostly the mortgage foreclosures. So in Texas, it's a 21-day process. In California, it's a 90-day process. In some states, it's a judicial process where you have to go to court first and the court has to go bid on it. So is it possible to bid on a property virtually? Yes. But in very unique circumstances. So in Texas, there's customers that I also own a foreclosure bidding company. So companies can bid with us virtually where we will go stand out there with checks and bid on people's behalf, but we charge a large fee to do that. Auction.com will let some people do it virtually. In some states, some of their properties are eligible, but you have to wire the funds ahead of time the day before to make sure that you're going to be eligible to be able to bid. In most cases, in most states, you can't bid virtually. So foreclosure notice, comes out as those notices on the wall on the left side right there. They get posted on the side, and it says, here's the person's name. You know, here's what they owe on it, and then you have to go through and figure it out. When is auction? In Texas, it's the same time in every county, every day on the first Tuesday of the month. In Georgia, it's the same thing. In California, it's every day. You know, in Colorado, it's like once a week. So depending on your state, you can figure out when it's happening. But the great way to figure out when it's happening, actually, the only benefit I see with auction.com is if you go to auction.com and you type in your county, or foreclosure always organized by county, you'll be able to see when their upcoming auctions are. And that'll tell you when to go show up and see the other trustees, and it'll tell you how often auctions are in your state. With Eddie, here's that example in the middle of the trustee sales receipt that you get. It doesn't have a whole lot of information on it, but it says like who you are and where they're going to send the money. And on the right, those are the cashier's checks that we come to auction with. When we do that, we bring cashier's checks like a wallet. So if I bid $100,000 with Eddie and he says sold, I need to give him at least enough cashier's checks to pay for that property. If I give him a $400,000 cashier's check, he's going to take it. And 3 weeks later, I'm going to get a $300,000 refund sent to me from the trustee. So ideally, if I bid $100,000, I only want to give him $100,000. But I don't know if it's going to be 100 or 150, or I don't know if I'm going to buy the small house or the big one, especially if I'm fishing and I cast a big net. So we bring all these checks like you would in your wallet. If you go somewhere where if you're going out to eat or you're going on vacation, you're not going to bring all hundreds. You're going to bring hundreds and 50s and 20s and 5s because maybe you want to tip people. Maybe you want to have exact change for food. Maybe, you know, people aren't going to make you change. So we do the same thing with cashier's checks, but we're going to have a $100,000 check and a $50,000 check and a $20,000 check. So that way, when we do buy a house, we try to give them the smallest amount possible. If no one buys, if Eddie says the opening bid is $100,000 going once, going twice, sold, if nobody bids on it, then it becomes a bank-owned REO. Now the bank owns it. They're going to hire an MLS agent. They're going to hire a real estate agent to list it on MLS. It's going to show on MLS, this is an REO. So that's how you see those REOs. But lots of houses sell in foreclosure before that point. And that was our problem. We tried to buy these and we were never successful. We had to go buy them on the courthouse steps instead. So like bank owned versus third party, this top line is an example in a county in San Antonio, the Bay Area County where San Antonio is. The red line is how many properties are hosted for foreclosure. So like this month, for example, 375 came out on the list. Of that, 90 of them sold. And 39 of them sold back to the lender. 42% of them sold to 42% of them sold to a third-party buyer. And then this 15 and 19 were ones that had traditional sales before the auction happened. So of those 375 that were posted, only about a quarter of them actually went to sale and sold at the auction. And so again, that's why it's a numbers game. If you only pick out one property, the chances there's a 75% chance it's not going to go to sale when you're there. So there's lots of process and strategies, but first, any questions you guys have about that first process, I would love to hear them as I start to jump through it. All right, as I keep going, so you have strategies to buy before auction. That's going to be direct from the owner. You can buy subject to. You can do that through contract and wholesale. List for sale with an agent. You can buy at auction. You can use cash. If you buy at auction, you need cashier's checks. So you need your money, investor or lender. But just know most of the people that buy at auction don't actually have money. They don't actually have cash. They're borrowing it from somebody or an investor. It's the same way I first got with that. You can also buy after auction because not everything's sold. So for an example, like if a house was scheduled for auction and it didn't go to sale, now you could try to go buy it from the owner. If it's an REO, you can buy it as a listing agent, or you try to buy it from a bank at that point. So the 5 steps to buying on the courthouse steps. This is the important part. So one is you want to build and filter your list. Next, you want to drive by the properties. You want to see them in person. Then you're going to do your property analysis. You're going to look at what it looks like. You're going to see what you think it's going to cost you for construction, what you think you could sell it for. You're going to review title, and then you're going to go to the auction and to try to bid on it. So strategies to build your list. Are you going to build it or buy it? So there's ways to build the list. I'm going to quickly show you guys what that process is like. I have a much larger masterclass out there that teaches people how to build the list themselves. So as part of my bigger masterclass, I spend about 30 or 40 minutes in this. I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes in case you guys want to go check it out and see how to work. But I also have a company where you can go buy the list. So you can, essentially one of our companies, you can buy the list nationwide for everywhere except for Texas for $20 a month. So I could teach you how to build it, but more often than not, it's better to pay somebody $20 to build the list for you. When I build a list, I create a spreadsheet just like this, and I go through and I figure out in that spreadsheet how to go and you start to grab things one at a time. And so that first list, let me see if I've got I'm actually going to pull up another slide deck on here to try to find one that goes through a little bit more detail on that. Looks like this one pulled some of it out. So I'm going to find it for you to go a little bit more detail on building that list. Not that one. Sorry, guys. All right. Maybe. All right. As I'm pulling that part up, the way that the list process works, and excuse me for that for a second as I was going through that. So what the notice of sale says on it is the notice of sale is just going to say, here's the person's name and here's the legal description and their loan. It's not going to say the address. And so the first you start with that, and you see the name on the address. So the name on it is going to say, here's the person's name and here's their legal description. And the first step we do is then we go to the county courthouse. And I'm going to reshare this one now instead. I've got a better screen for you guys. Share my screen, jump over to this one. That's a lot better. All right. So when it comes to building our list, first we get our list here. We're going to type that name into your county courthouse records for property taxes. And when you do that, the property tax site is going to tell you at least what their address is. So the notice is just going to tell you, and you put this in your spreadsheet, it's going to say it's Antonelli Parnell, the lender's Wells Fargo, here's the loan date, here's the document number, and here's the legal description. But that doesn't really help you buy with a legal description. And then you're going to type that name in, and once you type the name in to your property tax records, then you're going to be able to say, oh, here's the actual address for it. That's 705 Spoke Drive in Killeen. A lot of times on the courthouse sites, you're also going to be able to see how big it is, how many square feet, or you could type it into Redfin and Zillow and find that square foot. So now your list starts to get bigger. Now you know the address, the bedroom, the bathroom, how big it is, the Zestimate, the owner's name, the loan amount, and you start to plug all of that in because that's going to help you figure it out later when you go to auction. That auction is actually just telling you, they're going to say, hey, this is a loan by Anton Parnell, lot 2, block 3, Stagecoach Road. The auctioneer isn't going to tell you the address is 705 Spoke Drive. So that's why you have to go through and build one of these lists. But that's how you do it. You do that with every single notice. You go to county tax records, you match those up with the legal description, and you build out your list. And so we've got a link that you guys can go to, and it's biggerpockets.com/foreclosure bonus. If you go there, you have links to my list where you can build your own list if you want to build it yourself. This is what my list ends up looking like as I build out extra things. And then I would use it I put my drive comments in there, my pricing comments in there. But again, the way to shortcut all that is you can buy the list. If you're in Texas, you can buy that list from our Roddy company. And if you're not in Texas, you can buy that list from our company called PropHawk. And there may be other ones locally where you live. A lot of the places do have people that build these lists out there and charge various amounts. And the list would look similar to the spreadsheet I just created. The most important part is it has the address on it, and it has the lender names and some of the other things that we think they're going to talk about when they bring it to foreclosure. There's lots of software out there. Here's some of the software out there that lets you put it by map searches. PropHawk lets you do it, with the map. But it's free. If you want to do it yourself, it's free. So if you have more time than money, you can go to the courthouse, you can get those notices yourself, and you can build it using my free list template in that way. And then after you built the list, your second step is filtering your list. And so to filter your list, you have to choose your strategy. And so that could be, I want to only buy houses that were built in the last 10 years. That's my strategy. I don't like buying old houses at auction. I like buying houses that are built recently in neighborhoods where it's really easy to comp them and price them out. So you have to choose your strategy. Are you an auction, an investor, a wholesaler? And then you're going to maybe filter by price. Hey, I only have $100,000, so I'm only going to look at houses that are worth $200,000 or less. Maybe you say, I'm only going to buy vacant houses. I'm only going to buy houses in certain neighborhoods. So first, you build your list like this, right? Like this. You build your list by yourself, or you buy your list. And then you go through and you filter it and figure out which ones you want to target based on those. And then once you build your list and filter it, now you went from 50 in your neighborhood to like 30. And again, the reason you have to build your list is if you only want to do houses that are built like 2000 and newer, it doesn't say on the notice what year it was built. So you've got to build your list or buy your list first. The ultimate pre-foreclosure lead plan. I'm going to jump through this quickly. I spent about an hour on this during my master class. But for example, if you've got 21 days before auction, like what should you do? The day the list comes out, you should be calling and texting and sending a postcard, writing a letter, or trying to find the people on social media. Because if you buy the house before auction, right now, everybody has an incredible amount of equity. So if you buy the house before auction, you've got a much better chance at buying it. On the second day, we go drive to the property so we can knock on the door. Is it vacant? Is it occupied? You're going to take pictures. You're going to put your comments in your spreadsheet or in our software. Day 3, you're going to do some analyzation. What's it worth? What's the construction? Let's start our lien check to make sure we still want to, there isn't any red flags to tell me we can't buy it. Day 8, we send another postcard. Day 16, we usually drive by it again because it might be occupied on day 2, or we might think it's occupied and put a door hanger in the door on day 2. Well, on day 16, if that door hanger is still there, now you know that it's vacant. On day 17, the day before auction, we do comp pricing, we do title review, and we determine our max bid. That way we're ready to go to auction. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. In my larger class, I go through kind of the value of door knocking and sending letters and how much ROI you get. I think people should be doing all of those methods. Yellow letters is one of my favorite things to do right now. And if you go to my Instagram, I show some videos where we handwrite one letter, we run it through a photocopy machine. Maybe this will work. Let's see if this link works really quick. All right, so there's my letter getting through the photocopy machine here. Color copy. But it spits it out on yellow lined paper, where all I've got to do after that is change the name where I said dear, and then I write in the property address, and it looks like I wrote everybody a really custom letter. That's a fun hack we've been doing. You can also use services for postcards and things like that. You go find, so I was able to find the owner on Facebook of that property, even send them a Facebook message to see, hey, do you have any interest in selling your property out there? So let's see. So one thing I have is to tell people is beware of early postings. Most of the time, people are just looking at next auction because they're posted a max of the least amount of time you have is 21 days. But they might have posted it much sooner than that or much earlier than that. So there could be stuff in your neighborhood that's posted for December auction or even January. It says, how much for me to do none of that and pay you to do it for me based on my criteria? Yes, right? So we have software that does that. So nationwide, it's $20. And if you buy the right software, it's really, really easy to filter that property. So that's our PropHawk software. If you're interested in that, if you're in Texas, it's a little bit more expensive. But this section where it says beware of early postings, don't just look at stuff for the next auction because the next auction is next week. Look several auctions in advance. I'm not going to have time to do our PropHawk demo today, but we've got software that helps you text people in foreclosure too. That's been one of our favorite ways to get deals done. And you can find stuff out like, hey, do you still live there? Does a renter live there? Things like that. In my larger class too, I talk about what we say on our postcards and our text messages and our emails and our letters. But one thing I don't do is I don't tell people, I don't directly say, hey, you're in foreclosure. What I really like to do is our postcard likes to say, hey, we can buy a house really quickly, even if it's in bad shape. We have lots of options. You can even stay in that property for a couple months after. We try to think of things that a person in foreclosure would want to hear, but nobody wants to hear, hey, we know you're in foreclosure. Our text messages usually say, hey, is this John? Do you still own the property? And then we look at how much they owe. This happened yesterday. We saw he owed $120,000. So we sent him a text and it's worth $200,000. And we sent him a text that said, hey, we're trying to find a home in your neighborhood for $140,000. Do you know anyone that's trying to sell for a house that low? Well, the guy that only owns 120 says, yes, I'm interested in selling. I never said, hey, I know you're in foreclosure. Hey, I know you need to sell quickly. because that's where people get offended or they're embarrassed or then they're afraid to actually be honest about the scenario. And so so it says that's a bargain. Can you do nationwide or only in specific areas? 20 in Texas County out there. So are you guys still with me? My screen kind of reset for a second. So if you lost me for a second, and if you have any questions, be sure to ask.
No, you're still good.
All right, cool. Thank you. So day 2, we go drive the property. When we drive the property, we're going to knock on the door. Everybody says that's terrifying. Yes, some people will yell at you to leave, but there's going to be somebody who you're going to be able to help stop them from foreclosure. The best deals ever is they owe 100, we buy it for 120, we sell it for 150. They made money and they didn't get foreclosed on. They got to save their credit. We made money. The right people are grateful you stopped by and you really, really saved them. Also, when you're there, you want to take pictures because you're not going to be able to remember all of them. And then you want to leave a note or a door hanger to be able to let them know to call you later if they're not there. Your drive-by goals, you want to look at the neighborhood. You want to make sure it's the right address. You're going to try to see if it's occupied or vacant. And you're going to try to see the type of value that it's in. And again, some of these, I'm going to just go through the 5 steps so you know what they are. Some of them take a long time to really go through. Part of my larger masterclass or maybe a future webinar that I'll do here with Ian. But why do we drive by the property and why do we drive by it all the time? This picture on the left was a house a month before auction. This picture on the right was the day of auction. So there was a city lien where the city had done a demolition notice for an unpermitted property. And they demolished the property right before auction. So if you didn't drive by and you were just looking at Google Maps, or you drove by 3 weeks ago and you didn't drive by the day before, you bought an empty lot for the price of a house. We're trying to make sure they aren't burnt down. I bought a house that had major fire damage once. I knew there was major fire damage, but the other people bidding didn't. You also want to see if there's squatters in the house, things like that. So you got to drive by the properties. I mean, and here's some of the things that we see. Here is an example of a house that a month before auction, a car had like exploded inside. I still haven't figured out how that actually happens. But on the bottom, you can see like the property was fixed up kind of right before auction and back on. But that first auction got postponed. If not, you'd been buying a house that was busted out like that. All right, before you start driving, you want to plan your route to the most efficient route. You want to show up with business cards or yellow stickies or door hangers. It's even better if you have a website to send them back to. Because as soon as you say, I want to buy your house, or you leave them a door hanger or a sticky, they're going to go research you before they call you back. An extra 20 or 30 minutes of planning could help save you hours of driving. Some different apps that I use that are also on some of the handouts and some of the stuff that I could put as links inside Facebook is like Batch Geo is a website that we use. Google Maps is a website we use. Our $20 a month software also has a mobile app built into it. But as you look at like this route of houses, if you can see that, there's all sorts of different ways that you could be doing that. Like if you just drove out here and then drove back and then drove down here and then drove up here, then back, you could have a difference of like 2 or 3 hours of drive time. One of the fun things to do is put it all into Google Maps and keep shifting the order of where they are to reduce this. So right now it says your drive time is about 2 hours and 49 minutes. Well, if you just switch 2 of these, it might change to like 3 hours and 10 minutes or 3 hours and 20 minutes. So as things get moved around, the timing can keep changing on you. So I like using Google Maps for efficiencies. In general, when I'm driving south, I like to hit like the east side of the freeway. When I'm driving north, the west side of the freeway. There's also, like I said, our mobile app can do that. Batch Geo helps you plot it. Let's see if this pops up really quick. So Batch Geo will let you import a spreadsheet. It looks like that old link isn't working anymore. But if you pull in a Batch Geo link, maybe, or is it expired? All right, that one expired. They only let you store them for a certain amount of time. You can copy and paste your spreadsheet, and it will populate it on a big map for you. But Google lets you shift it around to find your route, or the mobile apps. So you want to plan your route. The better you plan your route, the better chance you have of making it on time. Before you start driving, again, business cards, door hangers, sticky notes, or a website. One of our companies, we help people do foreclosure websites. So our Lead Propeller site helps people quickly look like a legitimate buyer. If you guys want to do door hangers, send me a message or ask Ian. We'll put it on here of what we like to put in the text for the door hangers. But this one says, ask us how we can offer $10,000 to $20,000 more than anyone else for your house. And here's our phone number and here's our website. And you're sending them back to one of your pre-made websites so you know you're legit. Because the reality is a lot of people will be knocking on that door. A lot of people will be leaving notes. So the better you can do there helps. All right, risks create rewards. Your goal is to price risks into the value so you can come up with an amount you're willing to pay. It helps you earn a profit. We can't eliminate all risks, but we can reduce them to where there's a comfortable amount of profit that you can make. So we mentioned quickly what to look for when driving. You know, even if you can't see the inside, you can usually see, does the roof need to be replaced? If so, you need to put that in your construction budget. Do they have foundation damage? Is the air conditioner still there? Like half the times the vacant foreclosures don't have air conditioner systems anymore because they were stolen. Does it have an electric meter? Or is the electric meter missing? That would give you a clue about how vacant it was. And if you can peek in and see if it is vacant, cabinets are a $5,000 to $10,000 difference. Appliances, paint and flooring, those are the things that you establish to be able to come up there. If it's occupied, you want to ask them, are you an owner or a tenant? You can see from outside, are they good stewards? Like if the lawn is mowed and really clean and their cars are really clean, good chance the inside's clean. If there's a bunch of kids' toys in the yards or like just random trash and things like that, the good chance that the inside is like that. If they are renters, ask them how much they pay in rent. Don't be afraid. Also say like, hey, do you want would you want to stay here? Because if you already have a renter and you already know how much they pay, then you should know exactly how much you're going to be willing to pay for it to be on certain cap rates. Get their phone number and their contact info in case you buy it. You can track your drives through Gmail, handwritten notes, picture apps that are out there, or our PropHawk app. When I use Gmail, I set up a Gmail that was like scanner. It was like you could do like foreclosuredriver@gmail.com. And then you just email all of your drive reports to there. You take pictures of it, you put the subject line and the address and send it to yourself. I promise you're not going to remember all the addresses later. So it's a great way to go back and search them. These are some common ones where we were doing the drives. Like this one said, hey, it's vacant. We're looking in. There's some trash there, but it's in pretty decent shape. So if I just saw the picture, I'd say it was pretty good. But the reason you also take notes is the note says, wood flooring pulled away from the cabinets and dining room and wavy needs replacement. So it's really good to like when you're there, write that stuff down because because I might have forgotten about that, seen the pictures 2 months later and said that house looks pretty darn good. But the comments help with that. Here was one for an occupied one. We bought this lady from a woman named Catherine. She said she answered with a newborn on her shoulder, easy to talk to. You know, the house is in probate. She inherited it. Essentially, her and her 3 siblings, they're each hoping to get $10,000 each. That's it. They don't know how much they owe. They don't know how to get it through probate. They were asking for help. We ended up having to help them get through probate, have them get an attorney. At the end of the day, they each got $10,000 for the property when we sold it. We made about $60,000 on the property. They thanked us up and down. They were so grateful that we helped them through the process and helped them avoid foreclosure and go through that. And it was a win-win all around. Here's another one. Like I'm just peeking in a window here. There's like some trash there, like a tenant moved out and didn't clean up, but the paint's nice. The tile's nice. Some houses are perfect. Some are horrible. So again, in my longer class, I'll go through lots of examples on driving techniques and what to say when they open the door and how to have some of those conversations with people and the various pictures that you can be getting. But practice makes perfect. And the more you do it, the more that it works. We'll see if this video loads.
All right, so I went ahead and the garage door was actually unlocked.
Right after I bought it.
And so there's actually
you guys quickly see condition. It's full of
junk and
like
stuff
junk in the garage
in here
as you go through
inside the property. But there's electricity.
And I'm kind of telling myself the notes so I remember them when I go back afterward.
Property inspector, anybody here?
Even as I open the door, I'm announcing myself property inspector. I'm worried someone might be. The garage door was just unlocked. I had to roll it up and walk in. Again, this was after I bought it.
But not too bad.
You can see like the floors were pretty good. Paint was pretty good. There was some furniture there, some left. But like, look at that granite counter, stainless appliances. Sometimes you get some darn good houses. That would only cost $2,000 to get it cleaned up for us to be able to sell it. So in summary, the goal of driving houses is you're going to try to make contact with the current owner to buy it if you can, or you're going to make contact with the current tenant so you can find out how much it rents so you can underwrite it. You're going to try to establish the condition of the home and your remodel risk so you can come up with a pricing. The goal is really find the secret If everybody else thinks it's occupied and you find out it's vacant, you're going to be able to pay more because you know you're not going to have to wait 30 days to move them out. Or if you're able to see that it has granite countertops and stainless appliances, you could pay more. Or you could find the secret and you could be the only one that knows the cabinets are gutted and the counters are gone. And so you can avoid buying that and save your money for a better one. If you guys have questions on drives, I'd love to hear them. And I'll continue to jump through. So so this is a part of my other class where I go through and we talk about how to buy subject to, how to sign loans over to people. And I interviewed one of our customers who's a nurse during the day and does this on the weekends, and he buys everything. But the reality is if you can talk to an owner that's in foreclosure, there's all sorts of ways that you can buy that property from them, whether you have cash or not. You can wholesale it subject to, you can partner with them. And then Zach Shelley is the guy that I interview on the podcast. Really, now we're down to step 3, which is to analyze the property. And I think we're really only planning this webinar for like another 10 minutes. I'll go a little bit over as I try to jam pack the rest of this stuff for you guys. So day 3 is analyze, right? So the question you're trying to answer is, what is this house worth? So if you guys are in real estate at all, you already know that the concept is how you price a house is essentially if there's 2 identical houses next to each other, if someone is willing to pay $300,000 for one, the assumption is someone else will pay $300,000 for an identical one. The problem is houses aren't identical, right? They're not the same. And so you have to figure out how they're different. And so in the bird's eye view, for example, like here's my big things I use for pricing. Front and rear exposure, the size, the lots, the amenities, and the neighborhood. Here's an example. This one has a great big backyard, which would make it worth more than the average one. But there's a 4-lane road right here, so that makes it worth less. Well, this one backs to the busy street, and it's a small lot, so that's just worth less than average. All right, here's the average one. It's on a street, normal size lot, nice and safe. Here's the one on a cul-de-sac. Well, because it's a cul-de-sac, it's going to be worth slightly more than this one. And then this one, I go to look at it, and I see they've got a pool in the backyard, and they've got a really big lot, and they're on a cul-de-sac. These could be the same exact floor plan, the same exact specs, but this house would sell for $100,000 more for this. So when you're doing comps, you want to make sure you look at it from a bird's eye view so you can compare that. You want to see what does it back up to and how much different is it? Because if you see this comp is $400,000 and you go, oh, I have the same plan, I'm going to sell mine for $400,000. It'll be impossible because of that cul-de-sac view. So don't just look at the MLS pictures too. Look at the view. Do they back up to anything? We have sometimes they back up to like a cemetery, and over here they don't. Like that house, like lots of things can impact value. Again, a house is worth what more than one person is willing to pay for it. You need to find comparables. Zillow actually does a pretty decent job at getting sales comps for you if you aren't an agent and you don't have MLS access. Redfin does the same thing. The best comps you can get is from a real estate agent. There's also some different software out there or website services that help you provide it. The idea is pricing houses in kind. Right here, it's like I did my spreadsheet again. I wrote down all the houses in the neighborhood, but then I started realizing what are the ones that I don't want on my list. So like these ones were built in 2009, 2012, and 2014. I realized these other ones were built in 2004. So I took out all the 2004 ones. I'm going to focus on just the ones that are around the same size. And then this one was 2014, but this one had a pool. This one was a 2-story, and this one was too big. So I thought none of those are good comparisons. So I took these 3 comparisons that range between 195 and 225, and I came up with the value of my property. Mine was slightly bigger than all of those. We put a $230,000 price on them, which was still less than some of these other comps. One of the things that you're also going to have in my template, if you go to that link, is I have this spreadsheet where you go through and you plug in your square footages and your sales prices, and you can plot these sales lines. So a lot of times people will say, this one sold for $200 a foot, so this one will also sell for $200 a foot. That is the worst way to do it because it's not linear like that. This is like an old MX plus B equation. It's not, if it was a 45-degree angle, you could use price per square foot. But if you did that every time you got to an empty lot, it would be worth 0. But people pay money for lots. And so anyway, it's not a 45-degree angle. It's more of a plot line like this. I love to comp my prices like this, especially if I'm looking for one that's 1,800 square foot and my comps are either 1,500 or 2,200, something like that. It hits this center point right here. And just again, the biggest reason you don't use price per square foot is if you used price per square foot of this house, that was a 2,100 square foot house, to try to put for this 2,367, you'd get $150 a square foot, and you would think that it's worth $345,000 when the actual price is it's more like $295,000. So don't ever do price per square foot. You always have to do a linear line. And see, I told you I would teach you something on here that wasn't just about foreclosure. All right, so quickly for pricing out construction costs, the best thing I can tell you is it gets easier with time. But the best thing you can do is try to take one of those big spreadsheets and try to come up with what you think everything is going to cost based on your guess from outside. Now, in general, if you can't get inside, you're going to have to assume that you're going to replace the flooring, you're going to replace the appliances, and you're going to have to paint it. Like, that's easy. So right away, you're like, okay, I'm going to be spending $7,000 or $8,000, maybe $10,000, depending on how big it is. You can put that in a spreadsheet and price it. Now, outside, if you see there's foundation issues, well, maybe you take it off your list completely, or maybe you add $10,000. If you see the roof needs replaced, maybe you add $10,000 to your cost, maybe you escape. If you can actually look inside and see it's missing cabinets, well, then you realize you're also going to be adding those to it. So I say if it's built in the last 20 years, I start with around a $20,000 guess, and I round it up and down depending on how nice it is. If it's vacant, I start around a $15,000 guess, and I adjust up and down depending on how nice it is. Part of that too is it's that idea. It's a new plant, or also new fixtures, new appliances. And in that link, that biggerpockets.com/foreclosure bonus, we do have a spreadsheet that helps you kind of price out your stuff. Also on my Instagram, I show you how much things should cost in different areas. So how much you should pay for window replacement, for interior paint, for exterior paint. It might take 10 painters, getting quotes from 10 painters before you find the price that you need. But that's how you're going to do it. Last part of auction prep is title review. So I'm not going to have enough time to do a full title review concept for you today, but here's what you need to know. The biggest fear and risk of buying at foreclosure sale is title issues. So one is you could buy the wrong property. Again, because those legal notices don't put addresses on them, you could think that you're buying 121 Main Street and you could buy 122 Main Street. So when you're doing title review, you want to be reviewing the legal description. They could have back taxes on them, although that's very easy to search. You just search the property tax for your county and you find out there's back taxes and you add those to your bill. Sometimes people have a $20,000 tax bill though and they forgot to check. There's also could be multiple loans on them. There's also IRS liens. So you can research online or at the county courthouse or get help from a title company. And as you're doing that, it's a really like fun, unique process. It's very simple. It's tedious. It's not easy, but it's very simple. And so if you follow the title steps, it's really easy to make sure that you avoid it. Mortgage loans, deeds of trust. The reason that's my favorite is all subordinate loans are extinguished. If there's a federal tax lien, it's going to survive for 120 days. Then you're allowed to sell it. If there's a state tax lien, depending on the state, it'll go away, and depending on the date. But most of the time, state tax liens go away as soon as you buy the foreclosure. A mechanics lien will go away unless it was recorded after before the mortgage was recorded. HOA liens will go away. You don't owe those. The HOAs will try to get you to pay them, but you just have to tell them, I bought this in foreclosure. Property taxes do survive. You have to pay those. City and utility liens survive, and UCC liens survive. So here's an example of what you could see on a property. When somebody bought a house, they got a $220,000 first loan. They got a $35,000 second loan. There was an HOA lien for $5,000 recently. They got a utility lien from the city because they weren't mowing their lawn, and they got a UCC lien for filing a water softener. Any one of these liens could get foreclosed on. So if you buy the HOA lien, you still have to pay off the $35,000 loan and the $220,000 loan. If you buy the $35,000 loan, you still have to pay off the $220,000 loan, but you don't have to pay off the one below it, right? And then if you buy a first that's $220,000, it's going to extinguish the $35,000 lien. It's going to extinguish that HOA lien. But if you go back to my chart up here, back taxes and UCCs survive. And so the UCC one you would still owe, and utility lien you would still owe, but you wouldn't own these other ones. So that's the concept of title. And the way that you figure it out is, again, you go to my resource page, and as you're searching names in the recorder's office, you start putting the documents in here and reading what they say. I say you check that the APN matches, you check that the documents match, you go through the paperwork. So I've got a checklist in here where you put in the documents. And then the concept is you start writing them all down. So first it was like, Aaron bought the house in 2009. Here's the deed. Aaron got a loan and document 687. Aaron got another loan for 688. And then the deed, and then it says he got 2 new loans, right? So now there's new loans on the property. Well, so if you were doing this, you'd be like, hey, there's 4 loans on the property. And what if this one is the one that's scheduled for sale? Well, a different document later actually says that this loan got paid off and this loan got paid off. And so now you can look at it and see, okay, this is the first position deed of trust. So that's the concept that you use. Again, you use the chart, you do an owner name search, and you start plugging everything in here. Again, in my longer course, we spend about an hour doing some examples on that. But I really don't think it. I think that as long as you have the chart and the checklist, you're going to the county and in the county records, and you're searching the name of them. So let's see if this link comes up. If I share this tab instead, so I guess there's the property tax search where I can see where the property taxes are. Let's see if the name search comes up on here. And if you go to the county record site and you search their name, you'll see this. You'll see here's a deed of trust, here's an assignment. In most places, you can click on them, you can read them, and you would start filling out this form as you go. And as you read them, you'll see, is this a loan? Is it a deed? What do we do next? Also, if you do buy our software at PropHawk, we do like these mini little title reports inside them. So we can help you see which one's in foreclosure, which ones isn't. But I still recommend that everybody, even though we have this, that you're going to go through and check the names yourself or pay a company to do it. And it's really common at every auction. There's 4 or 5 that have bad title that you can't buy. So back to our funnel. Now we're down to this. We did our 50 properties. We filtered to 30. After we drove, we had 20. After we did title, we had 15 left. Last thing we need to do is prepare for auction. The way you prepare for auction is you do your resale price. I already taught you guys how to come up with that by doing the spreadsheets and comping and then adjusting based on, does it back up to does it have a pool? Does it back up to something else? Construction costs, how much do I think it's going to cost based on what it looks like? Do they owe any property taxes? Occupancy costs. So I have to pay somebody $5,000 to move out. What are my closing costs on it? Miscellaneous overhead, and that a desired profit, that becomes your max bid. Here's a spreadsheet. I think it's worth $160,000. The commission is going to be $6,400. I think it's going to cost me $13,000. I want to make 12% on my money. So if I'm going to sell it for $160 and I'm going to spend all that money, the max I can bid is $122,000. So this is the part that I'm going to really finish with as we're running out of time here. So then you go to auction and you prepared all 15 of your properties, and you go, my max bid for this one is 104. My max bid for this one is 226. My max bid for this one is 24. You go with all of your list. You're ready to bid. You show up with your checks. Your smallest check will be 25,000. Your largest one will probably be 100, and you'll have different combinations where you have at least 227 with you. So you show up with all of those as you go. When you go to auction, you want to make sure you know how much you're going to pay. You're going to arrive early. You're going to bring your water bottle. I like to write down which checks I'm showing up with, especially if I'm handing them to people in case you lose them. Here's other examples. Like sometimes you have to choose which auction to go to. If you only have enough money to buy one house, there may be an auction in 2 counties near each other. You can also get updates along the way to see if they've canceled or not, if they're still scheduled for sale. These are just other examples from my software that we do. When you show up at auction, it could look like this. They say courthouse steps. This one is actually on courthouse steps. This was in a yard next to a courthouse. This one is in a covering. Be prepared for whatever, for weather. It could be raining like crazy, and they will still do it outside and won't stop. Again, there's Eddie. I don't have time to show you guys the video. Some other stuff that we do in the full course too, is we talk about buying, after auction, what to do for insurance, how to track your pictures for construction when it's vacant, some of the market ready checklist, and how I decide what to do with properties and hire that team. There's so much info. I can't always, jump through it in an hour as we go through kind of those different lead types. But as I stop sharing my screen, I've got a couple different things for you guys that I'm going to put in an offering. Now, one, if you want to come chat with me on Instagram or in your Facebook group here, ask Ian questions. We'd love to be able to keep helping you guys as a resource on the Facebook page as you guys learn how to do more foreclosures. But a big one, what we've got is I have my foreclosure masterclass. It's normally a $750 class. I'm going to put the link in the comments, and I'm going to send Ian a custom coupon that he's going to be able to use just for you guys, where you guys can get $150 off if you decide to go do that larger 8-hour masterclass. If this stuff was exciting and you're like, hey, but I want to learn how to do title, I'm going to learn how Aaron manages construction, that would be the course for you. So that's one. So the you guys would get get a free coupon for that, access to that because you're part of Ian's group. You guys can get a discount. So I'll send him a coupon later today that he'll go ahead and tag at the bottom of this. So if you're watching the recording or you come back in maybe 30 minutes, we should have it in there. Second, our other offering is just go check out prophawk.com. So it's a 7-day free trial. It's $20 a month. There's all sorts of leads in there actually. So like the foreclosure leads are free, but we also have like AI likely to sell leads, likely to default leads, and all the systems that I talked about here on how to make an offer work the same way with likely to default, except for you're not buying them at auction. You're trying to buy them direct from the homeowner. In PropHawk, we have all the leads that PropStream has. We have the same technology as Launch Control. We have a built-in CRM like Investor Fuse, but instead of paying $100 for PropStream and $600 for Launch Control and $100 for Investor Fuse, it's literally $20 a month. If you want to send a ton of text messages and pictures and like phone calls, you're spending like an extra 30 or 40 a month for your skip traces and stuff like that. But we're still like 80 to 90% cheaper than those. So Ian posted the PropHawk link. The other one, Ian, is theforeclosuremasterclass.com. That would be the other one. And as soon as we clear out, I'm going to send an email. I'll send an email to Ian right now, or to Evan right now, who's my guy. And I'm going to say I need a coupon code for Foreclosure Masterclass, and I'll get that for you guys right now. And what should your code be, Ian? What's going to be easy to remember?
Flip Trader.
Flip Trader. All right. Flip Trader is going to be the code. So if you guys are listening, wait a little bit longer before you go to the foreclosuremasterclass.com to get that for your $150 off. Flip Trader will be the code, the foreclosuremasterclass.com. Hopefully that answers a lot of your guys' questions. I can't wait to come on here, Ian, and talk to your people some more. I think it's so cool, like what you're doing here. And I love foreclosures. I love real estate. I love buying distressed leads. I'm all about all these conversations.
Love it, man. So, what's interesting is, dude, you're watching a true master at work. Like, bro, I've been sitting here. I've known you for a long time. I've done classes with you. I got private training with you, and I'm watching you. And I'm like, God, this guy knows his shit. This guy knows his stuff, man. Look at in not even the level of expertise on the foreclosure stuff, the way that you can present in a webinar. Yes, it's fast, but dude, you dropped so much value here tonight. Like, man, hats off to you. Literally, like, hats off to you, brother. Wow.
Thanks, man. It's always like this balance of trying to see. I mean, there's so much out there, right? Like an hour doesn't do it justice, but an hour I can do a lot. And so I try so hard to see how much I can pack into that hour. And especially knowing that, a lot of people in here have already flipped some houses. They've already done some construction stuff. So a lot of it applies. But then for some people, they're going to say, no, I need more detail on that or that. So and thanks everybody for asking questions in the chat. Thanks for being on here. For anybody else that finds me later on Instagram or Facebook and we message around. I hope it's been really helpful for you guys to get on here.
Dude, I've done this before and this was helpful. I've had you train me and this is helpful. So I want to just let everybody know, we kind of talked about on the podcast the other day. You are somebody that isn't just an expert in this field. I just want everybody to know, just in case you didn't listen to the podcast, Aaron's somebody that I trust with just general conversation and information. So when I was starting to build out Flip Trader and I was starting to go down this route, I called Aaron to run the idea by him, knowing that he would say, you're an idiot or amazing, right? And when I remember I was talking to you, I was in LA and you're like, dude, I love this concept and I want in. And you just have to understand, like for the audience watching and listening, when somebody at your level says, I want to come on and I want to showcase what I can do, like, you're in the right place. For the audience, you're in the right place. And yeah, dude, you got offerings, because if somebody needs more, like we talked about yesterday, if somebody needs more, we want to give you a space to get more. You want absolute expertise from Aaron? He's giving you anything and everything. You think you learned a lot here? Try and take an 8-hour course with this guy. So look, I put all the links inside the chat. Aaron and his team will be inside this chat. answering the rest of the questions. Reach out to him. He's in our Facebook groups. You can just type in Aaron A and it'll pop up. He's the only one with that last name.
Yeah, tag me on those questions. It'll help me find him faster.
Right,
for sure.
right. Yeah, tag Aaron on any questions that you have. Or maybe even just go down and slow the video down so it's like an hour and 40 minutes and it's like
that's my biggest. I tried to talk slow, man.
Dude, you did such a great job. You did such a great job. It really did. I'm so grateful for your friendship, for the level of expertise, for you being here, for your advice and your guidance when I was building out Flip Trader. It honestly meant the world to me because I called my wife and I said, hey, I think we're onto something. She goes, how do you know? And I said, I just called Aaron Amuchastegui and he said it was awesome. She goes, well, I'm pretty sure he would tell you. And I said, he would. And he wants to teach. So I appreciate you for that, man. I appreciate you for everything. And we're going to get you back on here and figure out a way to do some kind of like, series or something where we'd start to dive in a little bit to each one of these topics.
Yeah. And I can't wait too. So for you guys, like, stay tuned. I'm going to get Ian on the Real Estate Rockstars podcast soon. Right. I'm sure he's just bringing people on and teaching you all about others. So it's going to be an opportunity for you guys to learn more about who Ian is and why he's here and everything else. So Ian, great to see you. We'll get you on my podcast soon. We'll put that back on here. Everybody else, let us know what questions you have. Thanks for joining tonight. And I really appreciate you guys hanging on this long.
Thanks, Flip Trader. Have a great night. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.